Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the session for the Faculty of Science at the University of Cape Town. Great to have you with us, and perhaps we should start off by saying that if your sons or daughters are not in the science faculty, then I guess you might be in the wrong place, and you might need to just see if you can find where you should be. But this is the presentation for the students, parents of students in the science faculty. Let me start off by perhaps pointing out something which may already be obvious to you, that I am not Professor Mano Ramotsindela, who is in fact the Dean. I'm David Gammon, and I'm the Assistant Dean in the Faculty of Science. Professor Ramotsindela sends his sincere apologies. He had to withdraw from this commitment at the last minute due to some unforeseen circumstances. So I stepped in to perform the duties, and I hope everything will go well, and that we can provide the information that will be helpful to you, and hopefully answer questions that you have. So welcome once again, and sit back and relax. Because I was drafted in fairly late into the process, I had to very quickly think, what shall I do? And so let me start by just quickly saying why me, and what is my role, and then maybe speak a little bit to what I'm responsible for, and I think you might find that this will answer some of your questions at least. So I'm the Assistant Dean with specific responsibilities in the faculty for student support. So that is both academic support and, in fact, more general support. So I'll come back perhaps a little bit later to some details on that. But in the meantime, what I thought I would do for you is tell you a little bit, first of all, about the faculty, just very briefly, an overview. And then tell you a little bit more detail what we have been doing in the last week to 10 days with the first year students, with your sons and daughters who've come to UCT for the first time. And I will give you an overview of how we have introduced them to the campus and to the program that lies ahead. And I thought it would be nice for you to get a sense of what it is they're going to be doing, and the kinds of support and so on which they can expect and which we are committed to provide. So I hope that will be helpful. So first of all, about the science faculty. Well, as you see on this photograph, of course, this is the University of Cape Town, and it's really a beautiful setting. The science faculty, incidentally, in case you wondered, is in this top right-hand portion of the campus. I don't know if you can see my cursor there. So this is the side of the campus closest to the city of Cape Town, which is just round the corner, around the Devil's Peak, the mountain. In the background is the back of Table Mountain. And down below the campus here this is the so-called upper campus. And then below is the middle campus, and then below that is the suburb of Rondebosch, the main road, and so on. The residences are, many of them are down to the right here of your picture. And of course, there are residences in some other parts of the city as well. So that's where it is. Of course, unfortunately, we've had to say to the students, we wish you were here. And perhaps we should start with that by just acknowledging that this is indeed a very strange time for us all. So you can be assured that we are very saddened to not be able to welcome the students in person. For many of us, in fact, for most of us working here at the university, the personal interaction with students means a huge amount to us, and particularly in the science faculty. We really, that's what we're here for. We're here to interact, to teach, to learn together. And so it is really unfortunate that we're in this pandemic situation. We've all just had to accept that. And I guess all that I can try and assure you is that we are doing our absolute best to see if we can work our way around this. I said to the students that who can we thank for the fact that you're not here? Well, of course, it's this dreaded virus. This is, of course, just a cartoon picture of something like what the virus looks like. And of course, we need to hopefully beat this together. And I guess maybe I could say right up front now, something which I know is a question on many of your minds. You know, what is the impact of this going to be for the rest of the year? And the answer, as you can imagine, is to some extent, we don't know. The situation at the moment is that the university and the science faculty, which is of course part of the university, have taken a decision that at least for the first half of the year and possibly for the entire year, we have to continue to assume that it's not going to be living and learning as usual on this campus. We're certainly for the first semester, what we've had to say, and again, somewhat regrettably, we've had to say that first year students in our faculty will not have any activities on the campus itself. No lectures, no practicals, laboratories, tutorials, field trips, and so on. Maybe this might change in the middle of the year, depending on how things are going in the country as a whole. It's a decision the university will have to take in consultation with the wider community. There is one exception, so that's the first year students. The senior students, second and third years, will, however, be on campus for selected activities. So, and we thought that we could at least manage that. But all of the activities for first year students will be online. And we have spent a huge amount of our time this past week or two trying to prepare students for that. So I'll come back to that in a moment. Just to quickly say, there is, and you may have heard this already, there's one very important exception to what I've just said to you, and that is that all students, including first year students in our faculty, will have to be present in person at UCT to write their final examinations. So for many students, they will have some final examinations in June during the formal exam period. So that will be the first exam session, and then there's a second exam session at the end of the year in November. The exact dates have not been released yet, but it's at the end of the teaching term, and you can check with your sons and daughters once they've got their calendars, which will be now on Monday, certainly by the latest. They'll be able to tell you that their classes finish on such and such a date, and they can expect, therefore, to have exams after that. So you might like to begin to factor that into your plans. If your children are still staying at home or certainly not on campus here, there will have to be plans made for them to travel to Cape Town and to be accommodated here for that period. And obviously the university will do what it can to help with accommodation, although not much can be guaranteed right at this moment. We hope that you will understand that, like so many of us in the country and so many different sectors of the economy, we are having to plan step by step and often to change our plans rather rapidly, and we will try and communicate that information as quickly as we possibly can to students and so on. Okay, so that's a little bit about that, and if you have questions about that, we can deal with them later on. We've said to the students, obviously, and we've tried to encourage them that this is what they must aim for to graduate. So if all goes well, 2023 will be the 3 years after they've started, and they may well be graduating with their Bachelor of Science degree. I put this up partly just to tell you what the sort of things we've been saying, but also to perhaps draw your attention to the fact that in our activities this week, we've tried to very strongly emphasize the prime importance of them settling quickly into their studies and adapting to them and adjusting to them and committing themselves to their studies so that they can graduate in the minimum time. So we are committed to that, and we hope they will join us in that and work hard right from the word go. Okay, so I've just out of interest, this is what I said to them. You know, we're a science faculty. I said we're going to approach this scientifically, and of course scientists like to draw graphs and to look for trends between different things. So I suggested to them that what we're trying to do right now is to draw a graph or take them through information versus confusion. And I said, if you look on the horizontal axis, the x-axis here, the horizontal, if you imagine that this is information stretching from 0 information to maybe too much information. So they will be somewhere here. Maybe when they came in and they started, they had very little information. They really didn't know what they were going to do. Then on the other axis is confusion. At the same time, some of them might have major confusion at the moment. They just do not know what's going on. They're not sure where to go. Maybe they're disappointed that they didn't get into their program of choice, whatever. Lots of confusion. So I said, I'm guessing that you at the moment, is you the students, I'm not of course you the parents, you will of course know everything, but the students probably had very little information and were hoping they would get it, but they were feeling quite confused, maybe almost sick in their stomachs at the degree of confusion. And I said, look, we're on a bit of a journey here and you're going to get more and more information. Maybe your path is going to be something like this. Gradually, the line is going to go to the right because you're getting more and more information. And hopefully, as you get information, you'll become less and less confused until at a magical moment, you will have the right amount of information and the minimum amount of confusion, and then you're ready to go. So maybe you can ask your children about that. What did they think of that, and where will they position themselves now? And you might ask them to tell you a little bit of information so that you also are informed. And hopefully this talk will give you some. Okay, so this is the presentation I actually gave to them. So I'm not going to go through this in huge detail with you as the parents, but I want to give you an overview of it so that you know what they have been told and that you can then follow up and ask them. Because what we pointed out was that this program this past 2 weeks was to introduce them to the degree, the science degree, to help them to choose their courses and prepare for their studies. And we hoped that they would find out about the BSc degree and how it's organized, how it's structured. They would find out the choices that they have and put together, make some choices, put together a curriculum, a choice of courses, a pathway for their studies, and then actually register and become a UCT student. And then in addition to that, once we've done those formalities, we will start the process of saying, okay, what is it going to be like for you to be studying at university this year? And where can you go for help? Okay, so that was the overview. Maybe let's just pause for a moment here, because what we've tried to do, and actually I'll go on to the next, I'll come to a moment and the point I was going to make. Here's what I said, that how we were going to do this. We'll show them how, and we'll keep them connected. We put them in touch with senior students and orientation leaders. We put them in touch with something called the VULA site, which is the UCT intranet. We welcome them, and this is the space online where all the information is. And we took them through an orientation program, which had activities on day 1, day 2, day 3, and so on. And there was lots of information for them to, like this, there was a program every day. They met with a small group of students, so they all got to know one senior student and a number of their own fellow students. We introduced them to digital literacy training, which basically means how to use your computer and online things, how to use email, how to work with documents online, how to communicate online. So we've made sure that whatever the level is that they came in, we've tried to help them to get the right skills to really get going. We've then given them information on the fields of study available in science. Now, here's where I can just break away for a moment and say that, and I'm sure the Dean, Professor Ramatsundela, would have told you about this, that the science faculty is very proud of its record and its high standing within this country, South Africa, and in fact internationally. We have world recognized scientists working in our faculty, doing research, often cutting edge, collaborating internationally with all sorts of people, working on all sorts of problems, and in particular working on trying to apply scientific insights to resolving problems which are of very real importance to us in our society. These are divided, of course, into different disciplines: applied mathematics, astrophysics, business computing, biochemistry, chemistry, archaeology. So part of the first couple of days was to introduce students to all of these options, some of which they may not ever have thought about before, because they're not specifically offered at school, something like archaeology, for instance, or perhaps biochemistry, genetics. They're not specific disciplines at school. And so we asked students, invited them to explore this, to speak to people about it, to watch presentations, and to get as much information as they could so that they can decide, actually, I want to be an astrophysicist or an archaeologist or a marine biologist or a specialist in environmental and geographical science or a chemist, and so on and so on. So that's what we've done. And then we took them through to the point where they've registered for the courses that they need to do this year. Okay, and all of that with the almost literally hands-on help of their groups and their orientation leaders, a senior student, and then in addition to that, a series of academic advisors who were available and still are available at the moment. We're still helping students figure out what to do. Some of them have got stuck along the way. Some of them have changed their minds. We've got a process that they can get themselves back on track again. So all of that's happening. By the way, in case they are worried and you are worried, if they're not quite registered yet, please assure them to try and relax and simply contact us. They can contact me directly. We are literally, as I said, by the minute, as we speak, we're still helping people. And if they're not totally registered by Monday morning, that's fine. We recognize that it's been a very difficult time with the online approach and so on. So all of that's happening, and it's in the context, I just want to emphasize, of a caring group of people. We've tried as much as we can in this very difficult context to make people feel, as it were, at home, even though it's very difficult to know what home is anymore. All right, so we went through with them how the year looks, and maybe you'll be interested just to be reminded as well. Of course, the first semester or the first half of the year runs from now through till the end of June. There's a bit of a break roughly in July, and then August onwards takes us into the second semester. There's a short break in the middle of the semester which divides it into 2 terms. So that's how the program works. The standard BSc program is 3 years. Everyone signs up for that. We then introduce them to different kinds of courses. There are some which run right through the year. There are others which run just in the first half of the year, some in the second half, and so on. So all of those details we presented to them, and we showed them where the exams are going to be positioned. We took them through some of the weird language that we use and the course codes, and I won't go through these in detail, but there's all these course codes. They will have signed up for them. Chem 2005 is a chemistry course at a second year level, and so on. Okay, so that was that. We then told them how to make their choices and that this is what their degree would look like. And I stopped at this point and I said, because I knew that some of them would be really freaking out, as they say. And I assured them that fine, we'll get you through this, but as long as you keep your mask on, to remember to be safe. And there was a recording, they could go back and watch all of this. Here's an example of all the different areas of studies arranged around this dreaded virus again. I did this partly to emphasize to them that in fact science makes a kind of unique contribution to understanding the virus and helping to combat it. And we have good examples in our faculty. There's a postgraduate student in mathematical statistics who has been part of one of the leading teams in South Africa that is monitoring the data and helping people to plan and to make the right decisions. So that's just one single example. There we've got a specialist in the biochemistry and microbiology area who is a world specialist on the coronavirus, and so on and so on. So whatever your discipline, it's probably got some connection to major problems like this or other problems that we are facing in our society. Okay. Move on a little bit because you don't need to know all of these details. They could select a major from humanities or commerce. We explained how to do that. This is an important thing I want to just quickly alert you to. Is it possible to do the BSc degree over 4 years instead of 3? Well, you know, the answer is yes. Of course, as you probably are aware, if you do terribly badly in your first year, you'll end up doing it over 4 years anyway. And that wasn't quite what I meant, but in a way, it's exactly what I wanted the students to think about. Why take the risk of failing if you think the load is too heavy, when in fact you could adjust the load and deliberately do it over 4 years? And so that is the basis of our 4-year degree, extended program. And the way it works, very briefly, and just to alert you at this stage, we will give the students full details. They write a set of tests in 4 weeks' time. And on the basis of that and on their in-course performance, we make recommendations to students. If at that point it's clear to us that they're really not coping with the load, we say to them, okay, hang on a second. Why don't you drop this course and rather just do, instead of 4 courses, do 3, and then adjust your load over 4 years instead of 3. That way, you can be assured that you will go all the way through your degree without failing a course and potentially be hugely successful. So just to alert you that that is a discussion we have with every single student, and it's their choice. We try and emphasize that they must decide. It has, of course, got implications. By the way, the actual academic fees are exactly the same. There's no change in the academic fees. The main difference, of course, is that if you take an extra year, then you've got the costs of accommodation and all of that stuff. Obviously, we understand that. But they need to carefully weigh up that versus the possibility that they will fail and have to do that anyway. And then not only have they got the extra expense, but they've got stuff on their record which they're not particularly proud of. All right, so we'll come back to that, and you can ask for details. Let me finish by just emphasizing to you what we've emphasized to them, and that is that there is help available. I know that maybe you and others, and maybe the students, have come in with the perception that UCT is a terribly frightening place and an impersonal place, and maybe the science faculty in particular. Somehow we have this image of being aloof and disconnected and so on. So I want to assure you that that is far, far, far from the truth. We are extremely concerned about our students, and there are lots of ways we can help. First of all, here is the beautiful faces of the orientation leaders who are helping out this year. An absolutely incredible bunch. I tell you, I was so proud of these students because they were literally on duty day and night over the last 2 weeks, responding to queries, and so they will continue to be available to some extent. In addition, my particular role is to be a sort of link person. Basically, if they don't know where to go, they can come to me. They can send me an email, and my job is to either respond to them if I can solve their problem, or I will refer them to whoever it is, and I can do that by phone as well. I can say, please send me your cell phone number, and I'll phone them and I'll say, okay, you need to make an appointment. Here's how you do it, and so on. So we've got that process running. I can often help them with general advice and counseling. Obviously, I'm not a professional counselor, and so if it needs that kind of help, I will refer them. There is the Science Students Council that is available, and there are academic student advisors. So just to emphasize to you and to reassure you, we've got structures set up so that hopefully no student will be left on their own. Obviously, some students are in residences as well, and they have their own support structures. Okay, I think I've said enough. It's time is basically up, and I'm going to stop at this point. And there are probably things I've left unsaid or questions that you've had, and so I'm going to stop. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for making those decisions to send your children here. And we really do hope that it is a wonderful year for them, despite all the challenges we have, and that somehow we will all come through this together. Thank you, and thank you for your support, and maybe we look forward to perhaps even meeting you in 3 or 4 years' time at the graduation. So, my understanding of what we will do now, and my assistant Clint can just verify if I've got this wrong, is what we're going to do now is we're going to proceed into a time of trying to respond to the questions that you have been posing. Is that right, Clint? We just go straight into that. Excellent. Okay. So I'm assisted here by our faculty manager, Ms. Karen Wienand. Karen's role in the faculty, you maybe won't see her right now, but she's her role is to lead up the academic administration in the faculty, which looks after all of the processes of registration and tries to ensure that the students' life through the faculty, the university experience is as smooth as possible. So she's very knowledgeable on all the systems within the faculty and the university, and she's going to be assisting me and fielding some of the questions. And so I see Karen has noted that there are questions about the tests in 4 weeks' time and whether they will be online. The answer is yes, those tests will be online. They will not be in person. You can rest assured, by the way, that the entire advice will not be based just on that one test. We're aware that students might be their first time that they've done an online test, but there will be many other weekly assessments that they do, and we will be able to get a good idea of how they're doing, and we'll then give them advice. We will not tell a student what to do without giving them an option. So please be assured of that. It is to try and give them what we feel is the best academic advice, and then to ask them to consider that and to ask us questions and then to make the decision. But the tests will in fact be online. So there may well be other questions like this. Let's see. Are there, let's have a look, any other questions coming up? Okay, yes, there's a question about laptops. So the students, the students will have had an opportunity when they responded to the offer that was made to them to indicate whether they needed a laptop or not. And those students who came and registered in person, as many did, would again, in fact, all students, when they actually started the registration process, there was an indication, do you need a laptop or not? So a lot of them will have been assigned at that point. If there still are students that do not have laptops, then we have been giving information during this week. So I've several times put up updates for the students and saying, if you need a laptop, here is what you're going to do. The best thing, I think, is to ask them to look out for announcements through the Vula site, and we will update as we go into next week what they can do if they still do not have a laptop. Okay, so we're hoping that everyone will be looked after in that sense, and from what I understand, most have been looked after. So hopefully that will be taken care of. While I'm waiting for Karen to alert me if any other questions, we did get some advanced questions, and I'm going to just touch on one or two of those, and some of them were quite similar to each other. There were a few questions about residences and people feeling a little unhappy about aspects of the residence experience that they seem to have encountered so far. It's very difficult for me to try and respond and answer all those problems, but could I suggest that you ask your son or daughter in their residence if there is a problem, whatever it is, if it's a problem with the food, the catering, if it's got to do with rules governing their coming and going and the quarantine issues, whatever it is, they must please try and speak to their warden, who's the in charge of the whole resident, or a sub-warden, what's called a sub-warden. Please log your question with that person. If you then don't get a satisfactory answer or don't get an answer, then by all means send me an email and I'll see if I can follow up. Just send an email explaining which residence and so on. But the right place to go first of all is to the residence warden itself. Okay. Then I'm just taking these questions as they come. There's a question about clarifying the question of electives in the first year, and the fact that are electives compulsory, and are there limits per semester and so on. So we tried to guide the students through this. The way it works is that the students need to choose a curriculum which has 4 courses per semester. 4, so 8 over the entire year. Okay, and we give them depending on what their major is, what their particular course of studies is. Some of these courses will be kind of non-negotiable. So if you're doing, I mean, an obvious example, if you choose to do mathematics, well, then you must do a course in mathematics. But if you choose, for example, to do chemistry, you will have to do a course in chemistry, but in fact, you will also have to do a course in mathematics and one in physics as well, and so on. So take that example, chemistry. You would have to do chemistry, maths, and physics, which means if you're going to do 4 courses in the first semester, you've got 1 which we call an elective. It's kind of an optional slot that you have in which to put a course. You need to take the 4 because of the requirements for the overall number of courses in the degree. Everybody has to get a total of 18 courses in their degree. You can't get around that. And so we make sure that they do 8 in their first semester, in their first year, and then make them the rest up in their second and third years. So the electives, you can take 1 or 2 or 3, depending on whether you have room for them. You cannot take more than 4 courses per semester because we want to protect students against the potential for overloading. So only in very, very exceptional circumstances would we allow that. But if they're at all uncertain, they can speak to a student advisor, which many of them have already, or they can send an email to me. Okay, so that's the issue about electives, and those electives can be just a choice that they choose themselves. It could be from science, it could be from humanities, it could, there's a range of options that they have. Okay. Just somebody asked in the pre-questions about the question of online learning and so on. I think I've clarified that there won't be any actual classes, but the way it will work is that the learning material will be put onto the intranet site called Vula in the form of short videos or documents or whatever for the students to interact with. And then in most of the courses, there will be tutors appointed who then supervise small groups of students and help them and assist them with the material. Okay. There's a question about financing. Are there other financing options for those whose NSFAS applications were declined, but who still need financial assistance? Well, as you know, this is a really hot topic at the moment, and the whole NSFAS situation has been in the national press and so on. So I can't give a definitive answer on this. My general understanding is, from information I've got through the university, is that the university is still working very hard to try and ensure that students either get their NSFAS funding, or that if they genuinely were, if that was declined, but it seems as if they are deserving, then to try and have alternatives for them. So what we've been advising students to do is they need to register their situation with our financial aid office. So you can ask them to check the information that we've been circulating. They need to make sure that their situation is registered, that when I say registered, they send an email to the financial aid office and they say, please assist, this is my situation. So that's all I can suggest at this stage. I can't at all, unfortunately, give guarantees. Each person's situation will be weighed on its merits, I think. But I think we're hoping that the national situation will be clarified very soon, because clearly this is a real problem. So please, the faculty itself, perhaps just to emphasize, the science faculty itself does not administer any funding, except for a few scholarships which are given out to very high achievers. But even that funding comes from the Central University. So the faculty is not does not take responsibility for financial aid. It's the Central University, and that's why I've advised students to contact the financial aid office. Okay. Right. Karen, do we have any more questions here? Let me just go back to my yeah, there was a question also in the preliminary questions about not so much about classes or lectures, but what about things like laboratory sessions and practicals? How are those going to be done? So again, this is one of those terrible decisions we've had to make, because ideally someone doing the sciences should have laboratory experience or field work or so and so on. But because of the difficulties of organizing this in this COVID time, we won't have that in first year. There will be a certain number of exercises which would be almost like simulated laboratory exercises. In other words, it would be something that they do online, either using information from real experiments or even watching a video of a real experiment and then working with that information and with the data and so on. So as far as possible, we will try and give students a sense of what's going on. And our plan is that in their second and third year, we will make sure that they catch up on the essentials of what they need. We do not want their science degree to be compromised by this, and that's why currently our second and third years are in fact back on campus, because they're going to do laboratory and fieldwork sessions. Okay, right, we have another question about accommodation and so on. So the question reads, we paid for tuition fees and campus accommodation for the full year. There's a question about a study visa not being out yet. And there's a possibility that her accommodation will be given away. Okay, if someone has a legitimate offer of accommodation, and if they are, which I'm assuming this is the case, this is a student from outside South Africa, I would strongly advise you to be in touch with our international office. The abbreviation is IAPO. Okay, International Academic Programs Office. And as long as, again, they have registered their situation with that office, they will be fine. Okay, so please be assured that if a student has been given an offer and for factors beyond their control, they are not able to have the paperwork all done by Monday, then that will be fine, as long as they have registered their situation with IAPA. So please do that, and then that should be fine. Okay. Another question about whether will my son be able to register before Monday? The answer is yes, if we can manage it. So again, they need to have seen a student advisor. If they're still uncertain about it, they're welcome to send me an email right now, and I will respond, and I will tell them where that we are in the process. If it turns out that it can't be done today, we will make arrangements to do it first thing on Monday morning. So there will unfortunately be some students who are registering a little bit late, and that is just because of all the complexities of what we've had to deal with. I'm glad to be able to tell you that the vast majority of our students are registered, and we're working hard right now to make sure the rest are registered. Okay, let's see, how are we doing? Clint, can you tell us how much time we've got left, so we have a sense of how many more questions we can deal with? We've got 5 minutes, is that right? Okay, 5 minutes. So we've got time for one or two more quick questions. Let me go back to the pre-questions. I think I've dealt with most of them. Oh, somebody asked about examinations and how those will be done. So just to quickly reiterate, the examinations will be held here at UCT. They will be invigilated exams in the kind of normal way, obviously with proper precautions if we're still in a risky COVID time. And that's why the students need to actually be here. They will, however, students will write some online tests or in between, and they will be given full information on that. They'll be shown how these tests will work, and there's a variety of ways that we do this. Some of them are done by giving them the questions, giving them an hour, and then asking them to write or type it onto paper, save it as a file and email it back to us. Sometimes it's directly online and so on. So it is important that they get themselves into a situation now where they can get online and interact with these resources. What I've been calling the VULA system, the university website and the information on the VULA intranet, that is 0 rated, which means, in other words, that it does not cost you anything to access those. So this is a special arrangement with the the cell phone providers and so on, that if you access the VULA site, it will not cost you data. So that's an important thing to remember. And there will also be possibility of data to people who really need that. So please, that good thing to emphasize at this point is to make sure that you are ready to access this information, this data, this online stuff, and be able to do it. Okay. Yes, the question about the exams, well, they need to be quarantined before writing. I can't be sure about that because it will depend hugely on what the national situation is and the regulations. We will have to abide by the national regulations, and if those involve some sort of quarantine, well, this is a thing we'll have to face. Obviously, if we do end up being in another wave of serious coronavirus, we will have to consider, as we did last year, having in fact online exams, but we will take a decision on that in good time so that you can plan properly. Okay, we obviously understand that there are some students and families that live very far from UCT in remote parts of the country, or parts of the country very far away from here, and it's going to be a real challenge for you. We do understand that. So I just hope that you will understand that we're not, this is not ideal. We're not trying to make it difficult for you. We are trying to manage what is a very complex situation. Okay, are there a few last minute questions? I see there is something coming up here. Let's see, anything else? Karen, are there any last minute questions, or do you think we've covered most of the things? Okay, so maybe we need to start wrapping up. Oh, yes, sorry.
I sent you a question about synchronous lectures.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that. I beg your pardon. Yes, okay. So there's a question about synchronous lectures. So for those of you who are not quite sure what that is, the question really has to do with, will there be live online things just like what we're doing right now? In other words, will there be some classes where there will be a lecturer like me giving a live session and everybody has to log in and so on and participate? So the answer to that is that mostly there will not be synchronous sessions. So in most cases, there may be the occasional one, but we've realized that because some students have difficulties getting online, the basic stuff is going to be pre-recorded material, which will be put on the VULA site and therefore accessible to them. There will be occasionally some synchronous sessions, some live sessions, possibly, by the way, in small groups, like tutors may occasionally arrange a session so they can help students with particular problems that they've got. Okay, so I hope that answers it. It's mostly going to be so-called asynchronous, in other words, not really live. But we found last year that it worked pretty well. Most students, obviously some find it difficult and they must just let us know if that is the case. But that's the way we will do things, yeah. Okay, in the unlikely event that we are out of any lockdown by the beginning of the second semester, will UCT consider allowing access to campus for first years? I think I'm not perhaps the one to speak authoritatively on this, but I think I can safely say yes. I think we will definitely want to try and get back onto campus as soon as we can. And you can be assured that we will certainly try and do that. And as I said before, unfortunately, we will just have to be very careful and stay in line with the national regulations and so on. Hopefully, information about that will be given to you in good time so that you can plan and so on, because we realize this is a very difficult thing for you to manage as well. Okay, I think, Clint, does that more or less bring us to a close of our time? Are there any last minute questions? Karen, is there anything else coming in?
David, there's a question about now that most of the learning will be online and many students won't stay in student accommodation residence full-time, are they still required to pay full year fees?
Good question. So the short answer to that is yes. As far as I know, there has been no official decision made to reduce the fees at all, the academic fees, that is. I guess that is, as I said, this is not my responsibility to decide this, but that is the official word that has come down. I think that decision is based on the fact that the costs are still somewhat similar to what they normally are, but I'm afraid that's not something that I can directly. It's not something I have control over, or neither does the dean. This is decided at the university level. So I'm sorry I can't say, declare automatically that all the fees are waived, but we have to carry on running the university, unfortunately. Once again, thank you for your attendance and for your confidence in UCT, even during these difficult times. And just to reassure you again that the science faculty is a great place for you to be. And we hope that we will be able to deliver on the promises we've made and to really give a good experience to the students, even in the face of the significant challenges we face. So thank you very much, and we look forward to perhaps meeting you sometime and certainly to interacting with your sons and daughters. Thank you very much.